Last time we were talking about positive definite matrices. So we said that a positive definite matrix is one in which X transpose AX divided by X comma X is greater than 0 for X not identically equal to 0, equal to 0 for X identically equal to 0. So that's what, and we showed that A is positive definite. If all its eigenvalues are positive, if and only if, because I showed both the conditions, its eigenvalues are all positive. Now I will prove a corollary to this, which is extremely useful in basically quantum mechanics. That is the following. That is, supposing I give you let A be any arbitrary matrix, not necessarily positive, definite. Any arbitrary matrix. Then for any vector A, for any vector X not equal to 0, okay, this X transpose AX, X power transpose AX is less than or equal to the highest eigenvalue lambda n and always greater than or equal to the lowest eigenvalue lambda 1. Okay, actually, let me use the slightly interchange the highest and lowest. Lambda 1 is the highest eigenvalue and lambda n is the lowest eigenvalue. So this is the way I want to prove that. So the proof of this is very simple. Okay, so X can be this divided by norm of X comma X. So X can be any arbitrary vector. Okay, and let A have eigenvectors E1, E2, En corresponding to eigenvalues. I'm only talking about Hermitian matrices. A is Hermitian. Most of the times, unless I specify, I'm only discussing Hermitian matrices corresponding to eigenvalues lambda 1 greater than or equal to lambda 2 greater than or equal to lambda 3, etc., greater than or equal to lambda n. Okay, now what I can do is, it's very simple for me to expand X in terms of the eigenvectors. Okay, expand X terms of eigenvectors. So I can write down X is equal to sigma over I, Ci, Ei. Okay, and what I have is Ci. So supposing I take X comma Ax. Is equal to A operating upon sigma over I. Okay. Sigma, sorry. I can write it down in the following way. Let me be. This is sigma over I, Ci, Cj, Ei, A, Ej. Right? Because all I have done is just use this expansion X is equal to sigma over I, Ci, Ei. Okay. and this is equal to sigma over I modulus Ci squared lambda I, since Ei comma Ej is equal to delta Ij, which I can choose in the case of Hermitian matrices, because all the eigenvectors of Hermitian matrix are linearly independent, and although they are not orthogonal in general when there is a degeneracy in the eigenvalues, but nonetheless you can make a Gram-Schmidt orthonormalization and then get this Ei comma Ej equal to delta Ij. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, having done that, now let me look at x comma x. This is equal to sigma over I modulus Ci squared, right? So I can always write down this whole quantity. So this is always greater than 0. This is equal to norm of x squared, which is greater than 0. So let me just take it as x not equal to 0, because that is when the whole thing is valid. So what I can do is, let me take lambda 1 minus lambda. Okay. Or I can take lambda 1 minus lambda is, I have taken lambda to be x comma ax by x comma x. Okay, so this one is equal to lambda 1 minus x comma ax, and I'm taking lambda 1 to be equal to oh well, let me not worry about that one. So let me just take this whole thing. So lambda 1 minus lambda is sigma over I modulus Ci squared lambda I. Okay, now divided by norm of x squared. Okay, so I can actually write it as I can actually write it as, lambda 1 tilde So I can actually write it as lambda 1 tilde as equal to lambda 1 by modulus x squared. Okay, so this is equal to lambda 1 tilde minus sigma over I lambda I modulus Ci squared divided by x squared. Okay, so what I have to show is that the right hand side is always greater than 0. Okay, so what you will see is the following. That is, let me take the
lambda 1 tilde is equal to lambda 1 into modulus of x squared.
Yeah, correct. Lambda 1 into modulus of x squared. You are right. Okay, so all I need to show is that lambda 1 minus lambda I. Okay, so all I have to show is that this quantity is always greater than 0. And so what I have is, I have lambda 1 divided by norm x squared minus sigma over I lambda I Ci squared divided by norm x squared, right? And because I can always write it in this way. And what we have is that sum over I Ci squared is equal to 1, because that has to be normalized. Therefore, what I have is 1 upon norm of x squared into lambda 1 minus sigma over I lambda I modulus squared. This will always be greater than 1 because see what happens is that modulus ci squared is always less than 1.
Lambda
So,
1 by x tilde square or lambda 1 tilde by x square?
yeah, just 1 second. Let me kind of this lambda 1 tilde by x squared. Okay. So what? So yeah, just 1 second. Let me correct it. So this one will be lambda 1 tilde minus of sigma over I modulus ci squared into lambda I tilde. Okay, where lambda I tilde is equal to lambda I into modulus norm of x. Okay, is that correct? Let me see whether what I did before. No. Yeah, so that if I want to put lambda I, then I can just put lambda I tilde, and so lambda I tilde will be lambda I divided by x squared.
So lambda I by modulus of x square.
No. Just a minute, I am unnecessarily getting confused. So let me just do it again. Okay. So it's rather simple. I'm unnecessarily confusing you. So I want to do the following. So let me take the following. That is, let me take my assertion is that lambda n is less than or equal to x comma x divided by x comma x time less than or equal to lambda 1. Right? So what I am trying to do is I am trying to show the let me look at lambda 1 minus x comma ax by x comma x. I have to show that this is positive. Okay, so this has to be greater than this has to be greater than 0 if this is correct. Okay, and what do I have? I can write it down as 1 upon x comma x times lambda 1 x comma x minus of x comma ax. Is that clear? All I have done is taken 1 by x comma x as the LCM, and then written it as lambda 1 x comma x times minus ax1 comma x. So what is that equal to? That's equal to 1 upon x comma x into lambda 1 sigma over I norm ci squared minus of sigma over I lambda I modulus ci squared, right? I showed that x comma ax is equal to lambda over I ci squared, right? I showed here that you can see here x comma ax is equal to sigma over I ci squared lambda I. Okay, so I can actually write it in this fashion. This is equal to 1 over x comma x sigma I lambda 1 minus lambda I modulus ci squared. I can write it this way. Correct? Now, modulus ci squared is positive. Okay, and lambda 1 is greater than lambda I. Okay, for all I greater than or equal to for all I. Right? Do you agree?
Yes.
No doubts?
No.
So the right hand side is positive. Therefore, I can write down x comma ax lambda 1 minus x comma ax comma ax is greater than or equal to 0. Am I right? Because all I did was I had taken this expression, okay, and I have just simplified it to this one, and I got lambda 1 minus x comma x divided by x comma x is greater than or equal to 0, or lambda 1 greater than or equal to x comma ax divided by x. Okay, I'm sorry, I kind of this thing messed up a little bit, so let me score that out, whatever I did before. So expand x comma x is equal to squared. So I can forget about all these things. Okay, so I have just shown you this result that lambda 1 is always greater than or equal to x comma ax divided by x comma x for any arbitrary x.
But say in proof, there was written that lambda 1 is less or equal to x.
Showing the other one is x comma for any arbitrary x. It is a lambda 1 is greater than or equal to x comma ax by x comma x. Okay, and we can also show similarly. You can show that the other result. Lambda n is then or equal to x comma ax divided by x comma x for any arbitrary x.
But sir, the proof where you written,
Okay.
it was written that lambda 1 is less or equal to x ax x less or equal to lambda n. It is opposite of that.
Look, x comma ax divided by x comma x is less than or equal to lambda 1 is the same thing as lambda 1 is greater than or equal to x comma ax by x comma x.
Okay, sir, I understood.
Okay, so I have just interchanged the two sides. Okay, because lambda 1 was on the right hand side here. You see this.
Yes, sir.
Lambda 1 was
Yes,
on the right hand side here. Okay,
Huh.
so I just put it to the left hand side. So whenever you have inequality and you change the signs, the sign of the inequality also changes. Okay, so how many of you have done variational principle in quantum mechanics?
Yes,
How
sir.
many
We
of
have
you have
done
variational principle?
little bit. Not.
Little bit. What does it say? Any trial function cannot E equal to let me write down the matrix element. E is equal to psi h psi is always greater than the ground state energy. Right? You have seen that?
Yes, sir.
This is the variational principle, isn't it?
Sure.
Huh?
Sir, in
Yeah.
the numerator, could you explain the symbols like psi, h psi? What is this?
Okay. H is an operator, which is a Hamiltonian. Okay. Psi is a trial function. Okay. So if psi is written as a matrix, rather if H is written as a matrix, matrix and linear combination of basis vectors, basis functions. Then E is equal to sigma or ij.
It is written if H is
Written as a matrix.
okay, sir.
Okay, because any operator can be written as a matrix, right? Okay, because of that, Hamiltonian matrix also can be written as a matrix. All you need is a basis. Okay, if the basis vectors are phi, let us say. Okay, so this will be sigma over I, ci squared. Okay, this is always less than or equal to the ground state energy. Okay, so the variational principle just follows from the fact that given any matrix, Hermitian matrix A, then no arbitrary vector can give an expectation value which is higher than the highest eigenvalue or lower than the lowest eigenvalue. It's always
Less or
bounded on
equal
both
to or
sides.
greater or equal to E0.
Okay. This is a ground state energy, so it has to be a lowest energy state. So this is the first part of the this thing.
It will be greater or equal to E0.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you are right. This is a ground state energy. What is it that I had written before? Yeah, it is greater than or equal to 0. Oh, this computer is really slow. It's become. Connection to the Wacom is not good. Yeah,
Sir,
what's it?
sir, in the first expression, you have drawn some brackets kind of thing, h psi, h sir. So I was asking, what are those brackets, and why
So
do you have?
I will talk about it when I come to function spaces. Okay. So
Okay,
these are what are called this thing Dirac's bracket notation. Okay.
okay,
So basically, what it means is the following. It means an integral. Okay. So I h psi just means integral psi star h psi over all the variables. Okay. So this is what is called the bracket notation. Okay.
sir, over all space.
Over all space means psi can be a function of many variables, right?
Yes.
Coordinates of electron 1,
Hmm.
coordinates of electron 2, etc., etc.
Okay, okay, sir.
Okay. So in that sense, d tau means all space. Okay. That's just a symbol. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, let me go to another interesting problem, which is what's called bordered Hermitian matrices. So supposing A is a Hermitian matrix. Okay, then A tilde is equal to A U bar transpose alpha. Alpha is real and U is an n vector, n component vector, n vector that means. Okay, and A bar is also Hermitian. Okay. Do you follow what a bordered Hermitian matrix is?
Sir, how
Okay, so I can
write this matrix?
huh?
What is
Oh, it is very simple. You know. The way to write it is supposing A is equal to A11, A12, A1n, A2, AN1, AN2, ANN. Okay, and U is equal to this vector U1, U2, then the components. Then A tilde is equal to A11, A12, A1 and U1, A21, A2 and U2, AN1, AN2, AN and 2n. Then I have U1 star, 2n star alpha. So this is what a border Hermitian matrix is. Okay, so I have a Hermitian matrix, which is this is the Hermitian matrix, and I have put a border. Okay, and where is it important? So this becomes important basically in when you are dealing with impurity problems. Okay, so example, I have or I put a isotope somewhere in a molecule and I want to know the vibrational frequencies of when the isotope is substituted for one isotope is substituted for another. I want to know what the frequency of the normal modes are. If I want to find those things, then the matrix between an impurity system and a pure system is basically equivalent to having a pure system without the impurity and then having a border corresponding to interaction of the impurity with all the atoms. Okay, so that's how it comes out. This one you come across in many problems which involve impurities or isotopic substitutions. So that's why these are important. Now the point is, can we get eigenvalues of eta in terms of those of A and U okay, so to do this, let us do the following thing. Let us assume that I have AU U bar transpose alpha. This is my bordered Hermitian matrix, and the eigenfunction of this one, let me call it as some vector y, which is a vector type beta. Y has n components and beta has the n plus 1 component. So this is equal to the eigenvalue lambda y comma beta. Okay, so it's a very simple way of writing out the eigenfunction or matrix eigenvalue problem of a n plus 1 by n plus 1 matrix in terms of that of a n by n matrix plus a vector and a diagonal. Okay, so you just have to multiply AU times YB, that will give me AU. Sorry. AY plus u beta is equal to lambda y. That will be my first equation. I write vector notation for now. Okay, and then I write the second one as u bar transpose y plus alpha beta is equal to lambda beta. So these are the two equations that you will get. One of them is a set of equations. The second one is a single equation. Any questions? What I have done is just expand it. Okay. So now let me take the following. That is, let me choose y is equal to uv. Where u is this matrix. To xn and axn axi equal to lambda I xi. Now, what is this matrix U called? What is the matrix whose columns are eigenvectors of the matrix A called? I did that in the last class. Looks like your people are not, reading anything up. Any answers? Do you know what U is called? Hello? Yes or no?
No, sir. Don't know.
Until you, better, because until you give an answer, I won't proceed. Okay, so now we also have the following relationship, right? I can write A as equal to 2 lambda, where lambda is the following matrix. You remember the diagonalization of the matrices? Lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda n on the diagonal, 0 and 0. I was discussing functions of matrices and diagonalization of matrices. I discussed this. So now if I substitute for y in the first equation, because y is equal to uv, then I get auv, not matrix. uv plus u beta u beta is equal to lambda right? And the second, we will come to the second equation later on. So this will be the first equation written now in terms of v instead of y. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll left multiply by u dagger. So I have u dagger a u v plus u dagger v is equal to lambda dagger uv. Right, all that I have done is left multiply by u dagger. And what is u dagger u? What is u dagger u equal to?
I.
I, because u is a unitary matrix. So this will give me lambda times v. I can forget about I multiplying by I is like multiplying by 1. So I can forget about that. And I can write it this way. And what is u dagger ua equal to? See, I have a equal to u lambda u dagger, or u dagger a u is equal to lambda, the matrix. because I will left multiplied by dagger, and then resulting thing I right multiplied by u, then u dagger u will give me identity. So I have u dagger a u is equal to lambda. Okay, so now what I can do is solve for v. V is equal to the following: beta times lambda I minus of lambda I inverse times u bar transpose capital U times V. No, it's not U bar transpose, just 1 second. And U dagger. U dagger U, and there is no V here. See, to obtain this is very simple. To obtain this is very simple. All I did was just took lambda V plus U dagger U beta is equal to lambda or I had the following, that is lambda minus lambda times V equal to minus of U dagger U beta, or I got V is equal to lambda I so that is the expression that I wrote down, beta lambda I minus lambda inverse U dagger U. Okay, now what I'll do is I go to equation 2. What was equation 2? Equation 2 was U bar transpose U plus alpha beta lambda. Okay, so what I can do is I can just write it down as beta times lambda minus alpha is equal to U transpose UV. Okay, or I can also write it slightly differently, that is U bar transpose, let me see, beta times lambda minus alpha is equal to U bar transpose UV, and so I can have U bar transpose UV is equal to, I can obtain two equations. So I have V is equal to this equation, right? The above one, V times I minus lambda inverse, and U bar transpose U times V is equal to U bar transpose U times V into lambda I is capital lambda inverse dagger U, and there's a beta here. Okay. So what I can actually do is I can equate these two. So U bar transpose U.
Sir, we are substituting V, so there will be no V.
We are substituting for V, so there should be no V. So just 1 second. Let me work it out for you carefully. Screwing up a little too much today. Okay, so I want to substitute for U bar transpose UV, right? So I will have, I have to get substitute for B, then I'll get beta into lambda minus alpha is equal to U bar transpose U. Beta I'll take here. Lambda I minus U dagger U. Is that correct? So I can cancel beta on the two sides. So I have lambda minus alpha is equal to U bar transpose U lambda I minus capital lambda to the minus 1 dagger U. Okay, so now let me try to work out what is this one. So what is U dagger? U dagger is this vector, right? Even bottom. So let me. E1 bar transpose E2 bar transpose En bar transpose, because these are all the eigenvectors. I suppose I used E1, E2 only. Yeah, let me see. Yeah, E1, E2, E2 are all eigenvectors. Okay, so I have AEI is equal to lambda EI. Because U is the model matrix. Because at given data, U as a model matrix, polar matrix. Oh, this is where I have to be careful. Okay, so I had written x1, x2, etc., xn. Okay, so let me use the same x1, x2, xn here also. That's what I wanted to make sure. Okay, so now I'm trying to get the following U dagger. So if I want to get U dagger times U, and this vector U is the following, right? U1, U2, etc. Un. That was the vector U. Am I right? Because that's how I have defined the bordering. That is a column border that I have got. Okay. So this is equal to what? This is equal to ith row jth column. So this will be x1 bar transpose x2 bar transpose u, etc. xn bar transpose u. Right? Because x1 bar transpose is actually a row. You are multiplying that row by u1, which means you will get x1 bar transpose u as the inner product. Is it correct? X1 bar, how do you multiply matrices? So U is a matrix. Okay, U dagger U should give me a vector. Okay, and the components of the vectors are X1 bar transpose times this whole thing, because X1 bar transpose is actually equal to X1 star.
Sir, all the two matrices
X2
are
star
cross 1, so how can we multiply them?
etc. X1 star 1. This is what you are multiplying. How do you multiply? Take the product. This row into this column. This is 1 row n. This is n rows, one column. So you will get a scalar 1, 1, which is this one, the first scalar, x1 bar transpose u. Okay. Similarly, x2 bar transpose, when I multiply by this, see, remember, U dagger is a matrix. It's a matrix where the first row is x1 1 star, x2 1 star, xn 1 star. Second row is x1 2 star, x2 2 star, x3 2 star, etc. And the last row is the nth eigenvector. Okay, so I'm just multiplying this row by this column, which gives me an inner product. Okay, and that is the inner product is x1 transpose u. Okay, or I can actually write, so I can keep it that way. Then what is u dagger u? So now I multiply
Sir,
lambda minus.
sir, the coefficients of x, it is 1, 1, 1, 2, 1n or 2, 1, n 1.
See, it's always the eigenvector index is the column index, because the way I defined u was by columns.
Okay, so it is in
How
terms
did I
of the
define u?
original vector. Okay, sir.
How did I define u? x1, xn. Right? Is that u? This is how I defined u, right? So that's the reason why, every column is an eigenvector. Here, every row becomes an eigenvector. Okay, and transpose of that one. Okay, so now the next thing that I want to do is the following. That is, I want to find out multiply by lambda I minus lambda inverse. Lambda I minus lambda inverse, I multiply into this one, which is x1 bar transpose u, x2 bar transpose u, etc. xn bar transpose u. So when I multiply this, what do I get? I get x1 bar transpose u divided by lambda 1 minus lambda, x2 bar transpose u divided by lambda 2 minus lambda, etc. xn bar transpose u divided by lambda, right? Because it's just a multiplication by a diagonal matrix into a vector. Okay, so the diagonal matrix is an inverse matrix because lambda I minus lambda inverse is actually this matrix. 1 upon lambda minus lambda, 1 upon lambda minus lambda 2, 1 upon lambda minus lambda n, 0, 0. Right, when I take this matrix and multiply by into this vector, so every one of the components of the vector change by lambda minus lambda I. Okay, so you can just multiply it. Now, what is the other one that I have? I have got u bar transpose u. So I want to know what is u bar transpose u. So what is u bar transpose u equal to? Okay, I want to get u bar transpose u, and this is equal to u bar transpose, which is the following: u1 star, 2 star, etc. un star. So what is u? U is x2 xn. So x1 is actually and x2 is the vector. So what does this give me? What do I get? The first row is multiplication of this one, first row into first column. So that will give me u1 bar transpose. Sorry, not u1 bar, u think my laptop has gone way too slow. Okay, so I have U bar transpose x1 bar transpose x2 U bar transpose xn. This is what I'll get, right?
It
Because
will be
I'm just taking the inner product.
see, it will be a row matrix, not a column.
Just a minute. Okay, so this has got one row, n column. This has got, yeah, it'll be a row vector, right? I will bring it as a, otherwise I can cross later on. Oh, you know, this slowness of the connection is really bad for me. This is the continuity of the talk. So this is actually equal to this is actually the row vector, which is u1 bar transpose x1 u2 bar transpose, not u1, sorry. Again, there's a problem with something not working properly, missing. And then u bar transpose x2, etc. Bar transpose xn. Okay, so now I can write on the right hand side. Okay. Yeah. Bad. So you see, I have the following. I have the expression for this part. Okay. I have the expression for this part, and I have also the expression for this part. Okay, so now I can multiply the two. So the expression for this part is this one. Okay, and the expression for this part is okay. So now I can multiply them. So it's just a matter of taking the inner product between the two things. Okay, just a minute. This is not the one. Okay, this one is actually this one. This part actually this one. And what is the left hand side? The left hand side is lambda minus alpha, right? Okay, so I have lambda minus alpha is equal to this vector u bar transpose x1 bar transpose x2, etc. U bar transpose xn multiplied into this vector, which is x1 bar transpose 1. Is it lambda 1 or lambda 1 minus lambda 2? When I don't see them, I always have a problem. Lambda 1 minus lambda. x2 bar transpose by lambda 2 minus lambda, etc., etc. It's not scrolling also. Shit. All the way down to xn bar transpose u divided by lambda n lambda. When you take the inner product, what you get? Lambda minus alpha is equal to what? Lambda minus alpha is equal to sigma over I, xi squared divided by lambda times lambda. Is it correct? It's a simple equation you will get. Any questions? You see, I'm just taking the product of this u bar transpose x1 times x1 bar transpose u is nothing but u comma x1 times x1 u, okay, which is complex conjugate of each other. So they will need to just become u comma xi x1 squared. So this is what I'll get. Now, usually this is so, you know, we can solve this. Using a graphical method. In that method, what you will do is to plot the left hand side of the function as a function of lambda and the right hand side also as a function of lambda. So for the time being, let me assume that all the lambdas are positive. Okay. So what I have is this one. So if I plot left hand side, so lambda is equal to alpha is what? Lambda minus alpha. If I plot versus lambda, what will happen? So I'll have the intercept alpha. So it goes as a straight line like this, right? The straight line minus alpha. Correct. So I am just plotting the left hand side and the right hand side as a function of lambda. And on the right hand side, let me mark the points lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3, etc., etc., etc. Now let me write drop verticals around these because we'll have similarities at the okay, and this is the y-axis. Okay. Now what happens is until this point, lambda is going to the 1 upon lambda minus alpha is a 1 upon lambda 1 minus lambda 1 is a dominant term. So the moment lambda comes close to lambda 1, okay, then it will become you have lambda 1 minus lambda. So this is lambda 1. Okay. So the lambda 1 minus lambda is positive here because lambda is less than lambda 1. So what happens is the moment it comes somewhere close to here, it shows a peak like that. And then when it crosses that point, lambda is greater than lambda 1, slightly greater than lambda 1, it is negative. And it is a negative infinity. Then it goes like this and goes to positive value here. And then, just a minute, let me be sure that I'm plotting it correctly. So the second one is, so at lambda 1, what you have is when lambda 1 is slightly greater than lambda, then it is going to be positive, and when lambda 1 is slightly smaller than lambda, it becomes negative infinity. So it comes from negative, and then when it becomes slightly larger than lambda 2, then again it goes, when it comes very close to lambda 2, then 1 upon lambda 2 minus lambda is the one that dominates, and I'll get an infinity there. And then similarly, I get so what you'll see is that the solutions are given by the intersection of the two lines. So this will be one solution. So I have the other line which goes like this. Let me draw it. So lambda minus alpha line was going like this. Okay. And the intersection of the two is going to be the so you see that this curve intersects here. That is one solution. This is another solution. There's a third solution, and so on and so forth. So all these solutions are very close to the previous solutions, the unperturbed value, except for the one that is the highest value, for example, the highest value of lambda. Okay, so this is something that is used in solving the impurity problems. This technique is used for solving problems or solving for impurity states in a solid. So it can be states in the sense you may be looking for vibration states, or you may be looking for electronic states. You will do it. Okay, so that is one part. And the second one that I'm going to be dealing with is the following. I will talk about, if I give you a matrix, you must be able to guess what is the region in which the eigenvalues are going to be. Okay, because this is very important. See, you have three, I will show you three main results. One, bounds for eigenvalues. Okay, and the other one is sum of the eigenvalues is equal to trace of the matrix, and product of the eigenvalues is equal to determinant of the matrix. So using these three, you must be able to judge whether the eigenvalues you have computed numerically from of a large eigensystem is correct or wrong. So in order to do that, you will do the following things. Okay? Let us see whether I can get bounds for eigenvalues. Okay, given a matrix A, is singular, means determinant A equal to 0. Okay, we have non-trivial solutions. For the problem Ax equal to 0. Right? This is
Yes.
what is the rule? What is the rule you call it?
Kramer's rule.
Kramer's rule. Oh, you people are all waking up, huh? Okay. So this is a Kramer's rule. So non-trivial solution means that you have a solution in which at least one component of x is non-zero. What is it? What is the laughter about? One component of x is non-zero. Are you hitting the same thing? Look at it. Okay, so what it means is that now let us consider. So let xs be the component which is largest in magnitude. What I'm saying is that modulus S is greater than modulus xi I not equal to S. Okay, so let me consider the Sth equation. So consider the Sth equation. What you will get is the following. Sigma over I ASI xi0. This is Sth equation, right? Or I can write as ASS XS is equal to minus of sigma over I not equal to S ASI XI. So all I have done is taken the left hand side to right hand side. Now I'll take the modulus on both sides. I have modulus ASS XS is equal to modulus sigma over I not equal to S ASI XI. Right? So far, no problem, I guess. So now let me do the following. So I can say modulus ASS XS is less than or equal to sigma over I not equal to S ASI. Nightmare when do I do? Is this understood? If you take, sum of the modulus of the sum is always less than or equal to modulus of individual terms, right? For example, the example is very simple. So if I take 8 minus 2 modulus, what is that equal to? Modulus 8 minus 2. You are there or you have left? Hello? Hello? Is it the computer line or is it the delay? So modulus of the two terms, what is this equal to?
10.
What is that equal to? 8 modulus minus 2 equal to 10. So you see that if you take individual sums, okay, moduli of individual terms, that's always going to be greater than moduli of the total sum. So that is why I have this one. So I can write it as modulus of a product is just the this thing modulus of the product of the moduli. So this is less than or equal to sigma over I not equal to S ASI on this side. Right? Now, if I'll do the following, modulus ASS is less than or equal to sigma over I equal to not equal to S modulus ASI and sine XS. Okay, what is this ratio modulus X modulus X? Will it be what can you say about this ratio? Modulus XS is greater than
1.
or equal to all modulus I. So isn't it? So
Yes.
is less than or equal to some or I is modulus ASI. Right? Because xi by xs is at most 1. So, this inequality holds. So now apply this to. So there is at least one equation. S for this holds. But we don't know which one it is. Okay. But at least there's one. Okay. Apply this to ax minus lambda I determinant equal to 0. Okay. So this has a determinant. Oh, one of these days I'll break this thing. Okay, because I'm looking at ax minus lambda I x to 0 or minus lambda I x eigenvalue. So non-trivial solutions only are admissible as eigenvectors. So I have determinant a minus lambda I is equal to 0. Okay, so when I apply this to this one, then I know that there's at least one S for which ASS minus lambda modulus is less than or equal to or I not equal to S modulus AS. Okay, but not yes. So for safety's sake, I'll assume that. So for safety, that is,
Please
I want to make sure that what's it?
Sir, can you please repeat from the a minus lambda I is equal to 0, that one?
One second, let me go back. Okay. So determinant a minus lambda I is equal to 0 is the condition for the eigenvalue for obtaining eigenfunctions of eigenvalues of the matrix A. Is it right?
Yes, sir.
That's the characteristic equation. So what actually you are solving is ax is equal to lambda x, or I can say ax is equal to lambda x, or a minus lambda ix equal to 0. That's what I'm solving. Right?
Okay.
This is the eigenvalue problem that I'm solving. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. For this to be having a non-trivial solution, you must have
A minus lambda.
determinant a minus lambda I must be equal to 0. Okay.
Yes.
And now I apply this condition. Okay. Let the Sth component of the eigenvector be the largest. Okay. So that ASS minus ASS is less than or equal to sigma over I not equal to S modulus ASI. So this condition is valid. Right?
Yes, sir.
So that is what I have written here. ASS minus lambda less than or equal to sigma or I not equal to S. Okay. But I do not know which Sth equation. So
There is one Sth equation.
I assume to be on the safer side for safety, this is valid for all. It may not be. Huh? No, I have only taken the Sth equation since I don't know whether the S is equal to 1 or S equal to 2 or S equal to 3 or S equal to N. So what I'll say is that let me assume it is true for all of them. Right? This is an assumption. Let me come back to it. It will become clearer later. Okay. Now in the complex plane, that means ASS minus lambda is less than or equal to sigma or not equal to S. Yes, BIS. No, ASI. Okay. AIS is true for all this. Okay. Now in the imaginary plane that I have, like I have the imaginary axis here and the real axis here. Okay. So suppose ASS minus lambda is equal to a real part of ASS minus lambda plus I times ASS minus lambda. Okay. So what does it mean? ASS minus lambda less than or equal to AIS. Let me call the right hand side. Or S. Nothing sigma or not equal to S. Not as AIS. Okay. So what does it mean? What are the values lambda can take if this condition is true? So this is like if this is ASS, okay, and if the radius is RS, okay, then this is like saying that I have a circle. Let me make it better. So it is that should lie within right? This means that lambda should be within this circle. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but I don't know whether it is a SL equation for which XS is the biggest or some other equation. So if I take the S plus 1th equation or I equal to 1, okay, let us take S equal to 1, the first equation. So first equation, maybe it has got A1, 1 here, okay, and I have R1. So the eigenvalue has to lie within this region. Okay. Similarly, if equation 2 is what you're looking at, and the component corresponding to equation 2 is the largest, then I'll have if A22 is somewhere here, and radius. So half the lecture goes in waiting for the computer to respond. So I have A22 here, and then I'll have the radius 2. Okay. So the eigenvalue should be in this region. JNC should give me a powerful computer to teach. Okay, so now I know for sure that if it is a 3 by 3 matrix and I'm only looking at these, then I know that if the eigenvalue lambda 3 is somewhere here, lambda is somewhere here, then this is a wrong eigenvalue. So if some lambda 2 is somewhere here, I know for sure that lambda 2 cannot be, because lambda 2 has to be one of these, this disk or this disk. Okay, so what I'm saying is that all the eigenvalues have to be lying in one of the disks. Okay, and incidentally, what is theorem is called this theorem that I have said here. This theorem is called Gershgorin's theorem. And sometimes also called Hartree. Okay. So in the case of Hermitian matrices, so eigenvalues should be equal the intervals given by the intersection of the disk and let it write what I have done. Disk and the real axis. So if I were to be dealing with a Hermitian matrix, let me point out what will happen here. So if it is a Hermitian matrix, then all my eigenvalues have to be this region. is the real axis, right? So they have to be lying somewhere here. So if it lies outside of this region, you know that you have made a mistake in your calculations, okay? And you know what the this thing. So you have to re-look at it. So because these are all very important to know whether your eigenvalues and eigenfunctions are correct or not. Okay. So one can easily find out using use of this theorem. Use bounds for eigenvalues. So it's a very simple theorem using it to get the bounds for eigenvalues. So any questions?
Sir, what is the name of this theorem you said?
It's called Gershgorin's theorem. I've written it here. Gershgorin's theorem or Hadamard's theorem. Okay, so you can look up. I think this is also given in Kittel, rather Kreyszig engineering mathematics. Okay. Any questions?
No, sir.
So I've given you one more technique by which you can actually know when the eigenvalue is, whether the eigenvalue you have computed is likely to be correct or likely to be incorrect. Okay. So let me go to, I think I'll stop here for today. If you have any questions, I'll be